How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So we haven't really recorded since the news, and it's some bad news. Jasson Dominguez with the UCL tear. We're going to discuss that, react to that. And what the hell do the Yankees do in center field? Yesterday, honestly, guys, yesterday might have been one of the worst days of my freaking life. Learning that Jasson Dominguez is scratched, all right, little elbow inflammation, that'll go away. Then you learn of the UCL tear. Then I got to watch the Giants get absolutely embarrassed on national television. It was like getting kicked in the nuts over and over again, as Ryan described right before this podcast. Just absolute, just savagery, nut kicking. I don't even understand. My emotions right now, I feel dull, man. I feel dead inside. I feel like I'm not alive. I feel like I had a nightmare that's just ongoing and into the morning. And now I got to sit here and talk about Jasson Dominguez and this injury and what this impact is going to be like for the Yankees during the offseason, what this means for Dominguez in the rest of the 2024 season. When do we expect him to get back? What kind of impact can he make? The Yankees had their starting center fielder 2 days ago. He didn't tell anybody his elbow was in pain, or I guess it started off not in pain. He didn't say anything, and then suddenly, bam, he has a torn UCL, and he hit a homer despite that. There is a lot of emotion going on in my mind right now. I know you guys are equally as frustrated. I thought the Yankees and Jasson Dominguez, I thought that they dodged a bullet. And I remember the throw he threw into center field, and it just didn't make it there. And his arm, he kind of held his arm after, and everyone was like, oh, okay, whatever. Normal stuff. But clearly something happened on that throw. The problem here for me is that now you have to go into the offseason trying to figure out what to do. So, Ryan, how are you feeling today? Probably as bad as I do, but Jasson Dominguez now out for at least until next June. It puts us in a tough spot because what do you do in center field now? I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the timetable for him to return, Aaron Boone said that Dominguez is... The reports are weird because there's reports of it should take 9 months, but then there were reports of, it's going to take, for position players, it can take up, closer to 6 months. I don't know what the timetable looks like. I don't think we're looking at something that's gonna, dramatically destroy Jasson Dominguez's career. I don't. That's not typically what a UCL tear does to hitters, especially at this point in their career. He's a younger guy. I'm not too concerned about his long-term outlook. It just sucks because he's gonna have to rehab from it. You're not going to have a center fielder. You're not going to have Jasson Dominguez in center field for, a few months at the very... I'm not sure even if I can say a few months. It's weird. I don't know the exact timetable. That's another thing here. We're going to have to do a lot of speculating. We're going to have to do a lot of, is he going to come back like how Aaron Hicks came back? If you remember when he tore his UCL. Is he going to come back like the way that in the time span that Harper came back? Is he going to come back in the time span that Trevor Story came back? I don't know, right? I think Story had elbow reconstruction surgery in January, and he came back, I think, at some point in July. If Dominguez is getting the reconstruction surgery at some point in, let's say, mid to late September, does he come back for May? That's totally possible. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Could he come back from April even? That's not completely impossible. If you type in 6 months from today and you Google it, you're going to get the date March 11th, 2024. So that's kind of encouraging. The way I look at it is there is no positive news that can come from Jasson Dominguez tearing his UCL. But at the same time, we kind of have to wait and see before we're going to be able to draw a legitimate conclusion on what it means for center field going forward. I think that you just sign a veteran and you just hope that they kind of hold the fort down and then transition them into a fourth outfield role. The guy who I think fits that role perfectly, like a Kevin Kiermaier type. I don't want to see IKF in center field. I don't think he's a center fielder. I need a guy who can play defense out there. I think Kiermaier would give you that left-handed bat that can kind of help you a little bit. He's been a good hitter this year. I don't think he's as good of a hitter as he's been this year. I think he's a little bit worse than that. I think he's more of a 90 to 95 WRC plus hitter. The best way I would say, the best way to describe Kevin Kiermaier is if Harrison Bader was left-handed and was a little bit of a better hitter. That's kind of what you're looking at. I think that type of move makes a lot of sense for the Yankees. You still have Everson Pereira in left field. I know Cody Bellinger's out there. Giving a 7-year deal to Cody Bellinger because Jasson Dominguez might be out for a month or two in the regular season seems clinically insane. If that's your conclusion, I don't think that's a smart one. We know that they're interested in Yamamoto. We know that, they'll explore their options in the offseason. We know that there's going to be a lot of reevaluations. I don't know if that necessarily means change, but reevaluations. Ultimately, Alex, I kind of feel like I'm so-so in terms of what I think they'll do in center field. I'm not too confident that they'll go out and get a long-term guy. I'm also not as confident they'll get a veteran guy. I think they will get a guy. I just don't know what type of player it's going to be. I'm kind of there's an argument for the Yankees going a variety of different directions. I'm just not sure which one it will be, but I do know that they're going to have to get a center fielder now, even if Jasson Dominguez comes back early in the season.
Yeah, and where do you go? And you kind of mentioned a couple of names like Kevin Kiermaier. Do you bring back a guy like Harrison Bader who's had a down year? Like maybe he isn't going to get a huge long-term extension. Maybe you bring back Bader for a season if he's open to that idea. Maybe leverage that into a long-term deal. Maybe you bring back IKF and just have him play center field until Jasson Dominguez is back. How about this? Maybe Everson Pereira plays center field and you just commit to some of your youth. There are options, right? It's probably a little bit easier. If you're going to start Everson Pereira, you may as well put him in center. It's a little bit cheaper maybe to get a left fielder. I don't know exactly where the Yankees are going to go with this, but this is a huge like shot in the foot. You know what I mean? Like next year we're like, okay, we got Jasson, we got Aaron Judge, we got Stanton still here. Obviously he can't play defense that much, but he's still here, and maybe he can turn his bat around. But still up for determination. Jasson Dominguez was kind of like the savior of next year. He was kind of being viewed as that, like, we dodged a bullet. Like, he could offer you a number 3, number 5 hitter if, they want to flip-flop Rizzo there. So there was hope, and now there's not. And you know what I mean? Dominguez is going to be fine long-term. I think that UCL injuries, as you mentioned, a lot more detrimental to pitchers than, position players. He can still hit. I mean, he hit a home run with a torn UCL already. Didn't really look like he skipped a beat. But I'll tell you what, if Dominguez can come back earlier and DH, is that something you'd be interested in? I know Stanton kind of fills that DH role, but is there a world where you're like, Shohei Ohtani is basically hitting still? So, if you're looking at Dominguez and you're like, okay, you know what, let's go and bring him in and just have him hit and play and just DH, maybe on days that Stanton can play defense, or maybe you just roll with Stanton until he gets hurt, because it's going to happen at some point. You may as well just let him play. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on bringing Dominguez back, letting him hit as he continues to rehabilitate that arm until he can throw?
I want to clarify, I have the utmost respect for Giancarlo Stanton, have the utmost respect for what he's done with the Yankees, and I think he's cool. He seems like a great guy. But you can't guarantee him starting reps at the DH spot, and you can't guarantee him the 4th spot in the lineup. If Jasson Dominguez, again, Jeff Passan said it could be a 6-month thing. If it's a 6-month thing and it's March 11th and Jasson Dominguez can start taking swings, Giancarlo Stanton has to play the outfield, or Giancarlo Stanton has to earn his at-bats. Right now, Giancarlo Stanton has like a 98 WRC plus with no defensive value and unplayable base running. It's not that he's a bad base runner. It's that he doesn't look like a baseball player when he's running the bases. Alex, he's going to cost you baseball games out there. That has to change. You can't be that slow and play every day. I'm sorry, you can't. We got to win. We're trying to win baseball games in the World Series. Winning baseball games in the World Series is not going to happen with Giancarlo Stanton hitting 4th, playing the way he has, running the way he has. I'm not saying it's out of a lack of effort. That's not what I'm saying. I think it is. I think he's trying very hard. I think maybe his body's failing him. Maybe in the offseason they need to tinker with or tweak the things he does and his offseason regimen. But there has to be that DH spot cannot just be locked in. It's not. In my eyes, it is not. Aaron Judge's spot is locked in. Garrett Cole's spot is locked in. We can debate other guys, but the DH spot is not locked in. If I look at a position group and I see you played most of the season, which Stan has, I know he had an injury stint, but for the most part, he's been relatively healthy compared to standards. I'm seeing a DH WRC plus for the Yankees of 126 that's largely carried by Aaron Judge. I'm seeing Giancarlo Stanton not being a good enough DH. The average DH puts up a 110 WRC plus. Giancarlo Stanton is 10% worse than the average DH offensively this year. It's not good enough for me. It's not. I don't care that he's making all that money. That's called sunk cost fallacy. When you put yourself in a situation where you play a player that you should not be playing, or that's not the technical definition, but the baseball definition of it would be you play a player that shouldn't be playing because they're making a lot of money and you made an investment in them. Don't play them. Stanton, he's going to get hurt too. Like, that's something you mentioned. Sell him, hey man, give us 50 of your best games athletically, and you're going to get hurt. We know it. You're going to get hurt regardless, but we're going to get the 50 best games we can get out of you. You probably net more value on that. The Yankees cannot leave Dominguez out of the lineup because they can't DH him. That's the way I view it. If Jasson Dominguez is more important to the organization than Giancarlo Stanton is at this point in their careers. Now, can Giancarlo Stanton change that? Yes, but he's going to have to change that before I say that, right? Like, we have 2 years now of him being not good enough. 2 years of not good enough. And that's coming at later ages and compiling injuries. So that's kind of where I'm at there. Ultimately, again, I'm not too concerned about Jasson Dominguez long term. I don't want to doomsday talk about it, but it feels more like that injury is a moral kick it's a kick to the dick. Like, that's what it is. It's a moral kick to the dick, not as much a baseball kick to the dick. If you kind of get what I'm saying here, like, the 2024 Yankees are not going to miss or make the playoffs, I think, just because Jasson Dominguez missed, like, the month of April. But for our watchability in September, like, now you don't really want to watch the games. I'm still going to watch. But now, do you really care as much? Are you as tuned in? Probably not, right? Like, does it suck? Yeah, it wasn't good. I cried a little bit, I'll be honest, right? Like, it sucked, right? But I'm sorry, man. If he needs to DH when he comes back, Stanton can't block you from doing that. And I'd even argue in the offseason, Jock Peterson is coming off of a not great year, but that bat's going to play in Yankee Stadium. I'd sign him for like $10 million and say, Stanton, that's your competition, man. Beat him out. Beat him out in camp, right? That's just where I'm at right now. I know that's a pessimistic view. I don't mean this to disrespect Giancarlo Stanton. I imagine Giancarlo Stanton would sit here and say, he's right. I don't think I should have, not that I don't think I should play, but I don't think I've done enough to earn that starting job in 2024. You got to update your resume. Sports, and Shannon Sharp says this, and he said this a lot on TV, and I think this is a great line. Sports are about updating your resume. You can't say, oh, I'm this guy, but what have you done for me lately, right? Like, what have you done for me in the past 2 years? You haven't done much. You got to update your resume. If you don't update your resume, to me, what I see is a hitter who's below average this year. What I'm looking at, Alex, is a player who has a 107 WRC plus, a 1.1 FWAR, and 821 plate appearances since 2022. That's not your starting DH. That's my opinion. I'd love for people to comment on it, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Stanton's coming off 2 bad years. This year, particularly bad, and he's been healthy for the second half of the season. He just hasn't picked it up. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a situation where Stanton's, like, been off and on. Like, the first half of the season was kind of like that, but this last, 2 months or so, 3 months, he's been pretty healthy. Like, there is no excuse for the consistent bad hitting that we've seen from him and the lack of production. So I agree. At a certain point, the Yankees have to say, look, we're trapped with this contract no matter what. We got to pay this guy $22 million in luxury tax no matter what for the next, until 2027 offseason. You're stuck with this. This is where the Yankees are. Now you have to make a decision. Are you going to let that contract impact your actual team success? Or are you going to say to yourself, we need more competition. We need, better efficiency from somebody. And if I'm the Yankees, Jasson Dominguez is my future and Stanton is probably my past, right? The Yankees can't keep holding on to their past like an ex-girlfriend. You got to let it go, man. Gotta let Stanton go sometimes. You got to let these guys go. You got to forget about it. Maybe there's a little bit of value there, but at the end of the day, there's really not that much value. So if you're the Yankees looking toward the future, maybe Jasson Dominguez is your future wife, man. She is she's the best. You're marrying Jasson Dominguez, but you're letting Stanton go. Like, that's the kind of mentality that I'm at right now, is like Jasson needs to be the focal point. If he can hit and he can come in there and DH, Stanton, I'm sorry, buddy, you gotta, like you said, gotta prove your worth. You gotta, if you're not hitting, Dominguez should be playing. Dominguez should be hitting and DHing. That's the truth. So where I'm at right now, there's a lot of variables on this team that are net negatives. A lot of guys that have been struggling for a long time. The Yankees, as we know them, are not gonna change the way they're doing things. They're still gonna have Stanton play. This is not gonna change. They're paying too much for him, but in a perfect world, I feel like we'd see a little bit more competition there. The question is, what are you doing left in center field now? And at least until Dominguez is fully ready to come back, and he will play like half of next year. So at the very least, you're gonna get Jasson Dominguez for hopefully July, August, and September, and then the playoffs. So given we can make it, so you're still getting 3 solid months of Jasson Dominguez at the very least, because the earliest he can return would be June, and if not before then, as a hitter. So, right now, I feel like baseball-wise, as you mentioned, it's not going to have like the biggest impact in the world. I'm more so curious to see how the Yankees now spend their money this upcoming offseason, because I don't think they're going to go after Cody Bellinger the way some people do. I think that Yamamoto is certainly realistic. I think that they love Yamamoto. He is durable. He is proven, at least in the international sector of the sport. So I would love to see them go back into the international pool and have a guy like that. Look, if Carlos Rodon can stay healthy, Cole, Rodon, and Yamamoto would be a sick starting 3 right there, just a 3-man rotation right there. And then you have Clark Schmidt, you got Michael King, you got Nestor Cortez coming back. Like, I would feel okay about that situation. But again, you can't keep avoiding the offense, and you need to go get some good bats, some bats that fit well in Yankee Stadium that can, produce, even if the defense is average. We just need guys that can hit. And the Yankees were not good enough this year in that regard. So right now, they're hoping the injuries dissipate. You're hoping Rizzo comes back. You're hoping maybe Everson Pereira takes a big step forward. You're hoping Volpe compounds on his rookie season, and things just get better naturally. But that's never been the case for the Yankees over the past couple of years. Things just keep getting worse, or we're being bailed out by like the Gio Urshela's of the world, or like the Luke Voits having like ridiculous home run tallies in a COVID abbreviated season. Like, you're hoping that these backups are stepping up and covering your ass. And this year, the perfect storm happened, and all those injuries happen as they usually do, and the backups stepped in and they sucked. And that's exactly what I expect most of the time. How often do you see backups really step up and dominate? The pitching fell apart. The rotation was nothing like we imagined it would be at this point in the season. You have Luis Severino's done. He sucked this year. Nestor Cortez sucked this year. He's done for the year. Carlos Rodon is basically a shell. Domingo Germán's probably gone after the alcohol restricted bullshit. There's so much stuff that's happened that we couldn't have anticipated. But at the same time, like, we invested so much in hope, and I think that's the problem, Ryan. We're always like so hopeful about players when it should be these guys are durable, they are proven, they've done it over a large sample size. We know these guys are good. Instead, we're hoping that Nestor Cortez runs back his best season ever. We're hoping that Luis Severino doesn't get injured again. We're hoping that Rodon doesn't get injured again. We're hoping that Domingo Germán doesn't have some domestic violence abuse issue again. We're hoping that things get better instead of just stay the same. Like, Garrett Cole is the epitome of that. Garrett Cole we know he's a freaking monster. We know he's a Cy Young contender year in and year out. We know he's going to show up and dominate. Nobody else on this team, aside from Judge, who also has an injury past, can I sit here and say, like, we know this guy is going to produce. We don't have that many guys. We're always hoping this guy is going to produce. Big difference there. And that's what pisses me off. We need to go get more guys that we know are going to fucking produce, not guys that are going to sit there and do absolutely nothing while we're losing games and just freaking plummeting down the standings in August when, the trade deadline is there and Hal Steinman are stepping in and saying, yeah, Cashman, you're not making any moves because I don't trust any more of your trades. I don't trust the third party, analytics. I don't trust the analytics team in general. I don't trust your decision making. When the owner steps in, especially one like Hal Steinman that really hasn't done much for this team to succeed in quite a while, when he has to step in, there's big problems. There's going to be changes this offseason. And I'll tell you what, Brian Cashman in Japan, looking at Yamamoto, unless he went on vacation and enjoyed a little bit more of Hal Steinbrenner's money, you have to imagine that standing ovation he gave Yamamoto, that big smirk on his face that he was showing when Yamamoto finished that no-hitter. He sees, like I said in the last episode, he sees shiny thing, he wants shiny thing. At the very least, Yamamoto is a durable, proven international talent that will come in here and probably dominate. He will probably give you a very good starting option, and he's pitched 150-plus innings for 3 consecutive years. The last 2 years, 190-plus innings. Like, the guy, he can rack up innings, and like, Ryan, you said last time, he's pitching 7 innings plus. You know what I mean? This guy is lasting in games. At the MLB level, maybe he goes 6 innings, but that's more than enough to get you into your bullpen and at least give your team a chance to win baseball games. So right now, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. Obviously, Jasson Dominguez going down is just destructive. It hurts. I'm emotional. But I'll tell you what, I still, there's a way out of this mess without having to torch the entire team and rebuild. We just need to be very, very careful about our moves. And every single one of our moves this offseason needs to pan out. Every single one, every single signing, every single player that we add to this team has to be of value. It cannot be you sign 3 guys and 2 of them don't work out. You need to sign 3 or 4 guys and all of them need to produce. All of them. You can't have guys that aren't good. You can't be hoping that a free agent signing is going to produce well. You need to bring in a guy who actually has done it. Even Cody Bellinger, over his last 3 years, including this season, he has 1 season that was above average. His last 2 years have been terrible. So if you actually, I like Cody Bellinger. If we sign him, I'd be happy about it. But again, you're hoping he runs back one of his best seasons in 4 or 5 years. So it's definitely a risk, but one the Yankees may not have a choice but to take, especially with the offense the way it is. But guys, I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments. Definitely a pretty turbulent couple months coming up ahead, but at the very least, we get to see some of our prospects continue to compete and get some essential sample size down the stretch. Hopefully Pereira can show a little bit more offensive value so we can maybe consider him a starter next year and whatnot. But as I said, always happy to hear your perspectives. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.